What's going on, football fans? It's your boys, Pound for Pound ATL. Not live this time, but I'm joined by one of my main men, Mike Dove. What's going on, Mike? How you doing, buddy?
Hey man, Jr. Man, it's good, man. We getting close to the end of the week, so a lot going on in Flowery Branch. We see before these boys go out to London, but got a lot to cover as we normally do. But
That's it.
man, look forward to talking about it a little bit. So, good one.
Yeah, we're kind of doing this one a little different this week because, like I said on the live show, I will be out of pocket on Friday. So by the time y'all are seeing this, I will be out in the boonies somewhere with a bunch of church age children running around doing some fun stuff for a fall retreat. So, but we didn't want to leave y'all hanging. So me and Mike decided to sit down and preview this Jets game a little bit. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about what transpired today with the Calvin Ridley stuff. Now, before we really get into it, obviously he's out for the Jets game and he's out for a personal reason. We have no clue what that is. Like the team has not told us, and there's going to be you're probably going to hear some stuff that I'm going to say, and you may take it a some certain way, but just know and understand that I don't know what this man's dealing with, and I'm not trying to make light of anything that anybody might be dealing with. He could have had a passing loved one. There could be a myriad of other things that he could be dealing with that as of right now we don't know. But generally speaking, you don't miss a game for personal stuff. So that just strikes me as kind of odd. But I wanted to get that disclaimer out there before we really got into it. Because as we talked about on the live stream, as of right now, Calvin Ridley just hasn't necessarily lived up to what we thought he was going to do and what we thought he was going to be coming into this season. He's had some uncharacteristically, drops. He's had what appears to the layman fan as dodging contact, so to speak. One guy said on Twitter that it's something he's always done. We're just now noticing it more because, the spotlight's on him. And maybe that's the case. Maybe that is the deal. Maybe now that he is number one, the flaws that he had are really starting to, shine bright. But needless to say, we all expected Calvin Ridley to step up and fill that void, especially with a certain someone who got traded. And through 4 games, he hasn't necessarily done that. So what are your initial thoughts about this whole personal matter type deal?
Well, I think first, the timing is poor, right?
Very poor.
I think for it to be a Thursday, we're looking forward to our team getting ready to take a trip. It's a very long trip. Usually that's a trip where, teammates are able to bond a little bit more. They're on a longer flight.
Mm-hmm.
Teams usually go to jail, come back and kind of come up with a game plan for what they're going to do for the rest of the season. So I think to have one of your leaders, right? He's a captain as well.
Mm-hmm.
Be out. I think a lot of us, our minds went to the same place where it's like, well, where we sold a little bit of a dream a little bit, right? The front office now. We can do it. We can delve on that later. Back to Calvin Ridley, though. I do think that whatever the issue is, it's not for, like you said, it's not for any of us to pontificate on, masticate on, any of that kind of stuff. I think that what it does tell us is we're going to have to be creative in how we get people the ball on Sunday. Like we literally, without our receiver 1 and receiver 2 on an offense that wasn't necessarily scaring people to begin with. So, I think it's one of those weeks where when your leader is out, it kind of leaves you with more questions. But the one thing I leave open is I think when Julio Jones was out last year, there was somebody that stepped up.
Right.
Can any of these receivers step up in this guy's out?
That's the thing. You talk about, as the weeks have went on, Calvin Ridley's, target share had went up. It went from 8 in the first week to 13 last week.
Right.
His yards went from 51 to 80. His yards, per reception got as low as 7.6 in the New York Giants game, but last week was his best week statistically outside of not scoring a touchdown.
Right.
So it's like after coming off a game where your offense really started to get clicking, it is very poor timing. And I know I initially tweeted out like, man, this screams some BS, because what was ringing in my ears is you had the coach saying, oh, basically we expected more out of Calvin Ridley, and to this point in the season. And so, you have the coach saying that, and then he wasn't available or you didn't see him at the practice. So, I think, Toby was like, well, maybe they're just trying to hide him from the media so he didn't have to answer, questions, and which could have very well been. The coach could have felt like maybe he shouldn't have said what he said, and now he's going to try to block him from it. But then another thought popped in my head. The way this season has started, 1-3, looking like a dumpster fire, maybe they are really like realizing that this roster ain't where it needed to be. These guys who they thought they were going to be able to deliver early on in the season aren't delivering, and so maybe they're acquiescing that it is a rebuild, and I'm going to float it out there. Not that I necessarily think it, but it is a scenario that crossed my mind. You have the Jets game and then you go into the bye, and we're pushing up on the trade deadline. So, maybe it's a thing where they're trying to, field some offers or see if there's any interest out there in Calvin Ridley. I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, but it is a thought that has crossed my mind.
Right.
And I don't know if it was a thought that crossed your mind as well. I don't know.
Well, I'll put it to you like this. He's a guy that really has a team-friendly deal. He's one of those guys that actually gives us a lot of max output, but he's still out on his initial contract, right? So I do think Ridley wanting to potentially leave, I think that could be an option, but the one thing I'll say about Ridley over the couple of years, because we never really thought we'd have this conversation about Calvin Ridley, is that he's really bought into the city of Atlanta. Everything that we see from this guy seems to be positive. So I don't think there's anything other than the personal issue that I would have from Calvin Ridley, even though Calvin Ridley is the guy that, if you think about it, he went to his his high school state championship, went to, he's been a winner for the most part.
Everywhere he's been, right?
Everywhere he's been, right? So I think even being a part of this, the losses we've experienced the last couple of seasons, that's not anything different to him. Excuse me. That's not anything different to him. That's what he is always, he's always kind of brought the mentality that I'm going to just come and I'm going to work. Mm-hmm. I'm just the best receiver that I can be. So, but I also know that for the last 2 weeks, this is probably the most critical the media or people like us have been on a Calvin Ridley, because I think we just kind of automatically thought he would become that receiver one. But as of right now, it's a long season. As of this week, he does not look like a receiver one. Can he put it all together and still potentially be a receiver one?
Right, maybe.
He has put together amazing games in the league. But, I don't know, for whatever reason, he is not his best self in this Arthur Smith offense.
No, you're right. He's not his dynamic self. And I don't know if it's because it is now like full on the Calvin Ridley show in a sense. I don't know if, because like I said, maybe it's a working in type process, but his targets have went from 8 to 10 to 11 to 13. So, if it was a lack of, feature, the features were growing, and so, if that was what it was, or if it's the idea that he had to be a more physical receiver. And I don't know if that's like that's the part that is really like standing out and become glaring, is that, he doesn't look like he's wanting that contact. And I'm not saying that that you should be looking to plow into everybody, like you should be hunting for contact, but it seems like every catch he's, going sideways, running out of bounds, and that's interesting because, we're used to having receivers who, and not just Jones, I'm talking about Sanu, I'm talking about, even Harry Douglas, and I'm talking about, Brian Finneran. We're used to having receivers that are, wanting to, fight for those yards or
Right.
fight for that touchdown. And, it doesn't seem like he has that mentality, at least not through these 4 games that we have seen. But so that leads us into like the next part of, the next portion is like, who steps up in his place? Like, I know that technically you've been out of your, you haven't had your number 2 wide receiver, but Kyle Pitts has been number 2 in receiving, like targets and yards, to this point. So he was really your number 2. So does this force the hand to become the Kyle Pitts show?
I think that, you know what? I think this does force the hand and say that we have to find ways to put Cordero Patterson at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and put it out there. Like,
yeah.
he's by far our best player on the offense right now. So I think logically we might have to move him out there. We might have to see a little bit more Gallman, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, let's look at it. No Ridley, you got to find ways to keep Patterson. The problem is they're going to, for the first time in his career, probably try to double team Cordero Patterson wherever he goes, because they know that wherever he is, it's a good chance he might get the ball. And one thing we always talk about him is he always can make the first guy miss. I think what will probably be interesting is, can a Christian Blake step up enough one game? I think, he's got the ability. He's a guy that could, catch 75 yards if you target him more, right? If you make him more of an emphasis, he'll catch some balls, but there's very limited athleticism there. I mean, do you trust a Tajay Sharp to be your receiver one? I don't think so.
I'm about to say, like, right now, like, as far as depth chart is concerned, this puts Olamide Zaccheaus as your number 1 wide receiver.
I didn't even want to get to him yet. That's why I'm just
but that's the thing, and that's what we were worried about, after the trade went down and our wide receiver core looked a little shakier. That was the one thing we're worried about is, can this offense sustain a, Olamide Zaccheaus as being, at the time we were worried about him being your number 2. Well, he looked okay as a number 2 on, like, as far as formations went, on Sunday, but now, like, technically speaking, he's going to be your number 1. And that's a little worrisome to me.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, is this finally the game where Arthur Smith has no choice but has to rely on the tight ends? Because we've been kind of waiting on Hayden Hurst to, like, have a game.
I would hope so. Like, I literally would hope so, because it baffles me, the production from Hayden Hurst in a contract year.
Man.
Baffling.
Like Toby brought up a real good point. The catches that Hurst is getting are like running back type targets. They're not, over the middle, seam stretching, nothing,
Right.
And so it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Arthur Smith attacks this, Jets defense that is starting to buy into Slahy's methods. Right. I mean, they sacked Ryan Tannehill 7 times last week.
Yep, relentless. And I would say the Titans offensive line is much better, probably a little bit farther beyond where we are, a lot farther beyond where we are. And yeah, they made them look pretty silly. So I do think that, like we talk about most games, one thing I will say, that's why I look at kind of the alternative receivers. Yeah, Zaccheaus, I'm not sure if he's not just a one-trick pony. I need to see more consistent route running from him to say we'll feature him. Like, Zaccheaus is more of a gadget guy. I'm not sure if he's ready for the volume to be a receiver 1. Now, if I'm honest, I see it kind of splitting up a little bit, just kind of dividing the pie a little bit, because they're going to be on Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is going to get his chances or whatever, but eventually they'll put 2-3 people on him if they need to, because they know that we don't have a myriad of options, right? So I think you got to feed Sharp on, honestly, I would say this is a good secondary to try the short screens too, like, or just the
Right.
receiver screens, to put these guys in one-on-one matchups. Because you do got a little bit more of the jittery receivers, with Blake and those kind of guys, because we don't have a physical receiver, which again is going to make it tough to run the ball. So it's like, how do we counteract that?
Yeah, and that's the thing is like somebody put out a stat today talking about Mike Davis's production as far as getting like pretty much all of his yards have come after contact, and like a lot of that is on the offensive line, obviously,
Right.
but part of it wonders is he hesitating too much, allowing penetration to get there.
Right.
That's something that I wonder because, I've charted all the games, and he's really the only back who has lost yards multiple times or
Yeah.
gotten stuffed multiple times. And on these same type runs, Cordero Patterson is at least being able to make somebody miss in the backfield and get upfield some. Wayne Gallman even had at least 0 yards. Like he was at least getting stopped at the line, not getting pushed backwards, right?
Right.
So, but that's part of what I worry about with this Jets team is that they got Sheldon Rankins up there. They got the Williams brothers, Quinnen Williams and Quincy Williams. Each had sacks last week. Now, they're let me see if I can pull up their roster here real quick because I do want to see. I know they had Marcus May at one point in time, but I think he might be on IR right now. I think he might be hurt. So I'm trying to see if I can pull up their depth chart real quick. No, I don't want to subscribe to you. Let's see. Okay. Cornerback, they got Bryce Hill and Brandon Eccles. I don't know who either one of those guys are.
And that's good. That's a good thing.
Right. But hey, man, this could be a revenge game because you got Sherrod Neesman, you got Tevin Coleman. Who else did I see that was on the Falcons at one point in time that is now on theirs? Well, you could say Sheldon Rankins, but he wasn't on the Falcons. He's just used to attacking Matt Ryan, being down in New Orleans.
Ooh,
But like their defense has me worried, and then you put on top of that, it seems like their offense is starting to get cooking.
Right.
They have on the offensive side that we need to be concerned about is like they have Corey Davis, which Arthur Smith should be very familiar with what he can do. They have why am I not seeing Corey Davis on their depth chart? There he is, Corey. He was blocked. That's what it was. You got Corey Davis and Jamison Crowder, who's okay. Elijah Moore, decent. Michael Carter, who I really liked coming out of college. Like I did a video on Michael Carter. But so far he hasn't really gotten it necessarily going. Against the Texans, he had 38 yards on 13 attempts with 1 reception.
Wow.
So he hasn't necessarily gotten it going. His best game was against the Patriots. He had 59 yards on 11 attempts. So, but this ain't the game that we want him to get going.
Right.
So the defense has definitely got to rebound. Our defense has to rebound from the showing that we had against, the Washington football team.
Right.
You're going against a rookie quarterback who's only had a few starts, thrown 8 picks, 4 touchdowns. Like he'll give you the ball. You just got to just like Henneke last year or the last game. Henneke gave you 4 chances to take the ball away. You got to capitalize on those.
Yeah, and you know what? Like while we're talking about it, like let's just go ahead and call these guys out, and we'll move on. Because, as a matter of fact, I'll leave with like the news of the day because it ties into a big reason why we're in this position. and it's the defense because I'll tell you this. Saw Adam Schefter's article where it said they asked Stephon Gilmore point blank, did he want to come to Atlanta? And he said no.
Well, now hold on. Now, was that in an article? Because I saw a fake Twitter account that said that.
I think that was Adam Schefter. I think that was Adam Schefter. But again, if it was fake, I digress. But still, you know, the thought of not wanting to be a part of this when it's a half a season, like we're not even players in it, it is kind of telling that he can just go to an NFC South rival. So anyway, enough on that. Whether it's rumors or not, he's over there.
Right,
good,
right.
whatever. We don't care. But I'll say this. The defense, it is a real good opportunity for the defense to step up, the secondary to absolutely step up on Sunday because I look at Kendall Sheffield is making a trip, so he may be back. Hate that we lost Isaiah Oliver, but I will say Kendall Sheffield at the nickel position, not a ton of drop off. Maybe you add a little bit more speed there, you lose out a little bit of physicality. But I think this is a game where our secondary against a rookie quarterback can start to force turnovers. I think for us to be able to get a momentum shift, we need more out of the defense. We need the defense to force more turnovers. We need more pressure on the quarterback. We got to put pressure on the quarterback because I saw that we just activated, was it Pinnell?
Mike Pinnell, yeah.
Mike Pinnell off the practice squad. Like, I just want to see somebody on the defensive line other than Grady Jarrett consistently get pressure on the quarterback. Like, we say it every week, but until it's done, we'll keep talking about it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you got to figure, you know, how often is, like how much of this crap can these guys take before they all start wanting out, and we end up in a Brown situation. Like, you know, I would have thought by now that they, not by now, but before the season's even started, that they would have either considered like extending Grady Jarrett, and they didn't. And then there's rumors that, you know, he may want to test the market, you know, and it could be the absolute lack of help. But, you know, this offensive line that the Jets have isn't a stalwart offensive line. So far, they've given up 1, 6, 12, like 12 plus sacks. Yeah. So that's 6 and that's 12 and that's 16. They've given up 16 sacks, you know, already, you know, this year. So, hopefully this is a game that we can really get some pressure. But then again, this is yet another game where you're going to have to deal with a quarterback that can scramble and a quarterback that can create with his legs as well, which we haven't done very good against so far.
Absolutely.
So this wasn't necessarily an easy game to begin with. And then you add on top of that, you know, Calvin Ridley not playing, and that makes it, you know, what the one advantage that you thought you had with, you know, being able to potentially boat race them with a more experienced quarterback in jeopardy now.
Yep.
You know, because now you're running into this game with, you know, your top offensive weapons being Cordell Patterson and Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
And one of those two hadn't scored a touchdown this year. So, I mean, maybe this is his breakout game. You know, maybe this is the game that he finally goes off. It does seem like the past few games they're starting to trust him more. Let's see here. I want to see something I meant to look at. We kind of had to force our production. Normally I'm doing research on Thursday nights, getting ready, you know, but we're having to record. So far, like, his targets have, well, his lowest game was New York. I mean, he was targeted 8 times in Philly, 6 times against Tampa, 3 against New York, and 9 times against Washington. So, I mean, they're definitely not force feeding, but they may have to start force feeding if they want to stay in this game.
Right.
And you know what? In a sense, this could end up being, like, win or lose, this could end up being a catalyst game for Matt Ryan and Pitts. Like, if that's his only choice and he's got to start throwing it, maybe they start building that chemistry.
Yeah, and I say this, Matty Rice, you know,
Matty Rice, listen to you.
Rice, looking at me. Matty Ryan played some good football on Sunday. I'll say that. Like, he played some pretty efficient football.
Right.
Let's streak of efficient football. But again, with the offense that we have, offensive line that we have, all of the questions that we have, I think the one thing that we can hang our head on is that we will truly know if the season is kind of, I hate to say it this early, but if the season is kind of lost or if we're just hanging there and keep fighting. And again, I think if we decide to just hang in there and keep fighting and, we see what happens, with the team, like I said, on a weekly basis, we'll see where we go. But I think this is going to be another game against a team. This is another winnable game. Will we be able to rise to occasion?
Yeah, and I think it's a deal where, like, you lose this one, and then we can really start talking about, like, fire sale,
Right.
like dumpster fire,
Yeah.
like what expectations we did have would be completely gone at that point. They're pretty much gone now.
Absolutely.
But if you go to London and lose this game, then, yeah, it could be the start of something real bad, so to speak. But, hopefully we don't. Like, hopefully we can block, hopefully our offensive line will take another step forward. And, hopefully our secondary is up for the task. You lost Isaiah Oliver. Maybe Darren Hall might get some play finally, or maybe even Richie Grant. Who knows? That's certain things that can be bright spots out of this. Is some guys may have to get, like Jalen Mayfield, may have to get thrown into the fire and see how they perform.
Right.
But I think that pretty much covers it. Like I said, hopefully we come away with a win and we go into the bye 2-3.
Right.
Or, if nothing else, hopefully we get some chemistry starting to build, like really starting to build between Ryan and Kyle Pitts. And at least we can have something to look forward to week in and week out.
Right.
But I think that's it. Like I said, as always, y'all can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Mike?
Oh, shit. Follow your boy, Mike Dub, MIKE_DUB. Hey, man, I don't even know how to end it, JL. What is it? Just win? Or can we please win?
Look competent while winning and or losing. All I know is that, we'll be back live on Wednesday to talk about whatever transpires. Set your alarm clocks because the game is at 9:30, I think, Sunday morning. So try not to get too lit Saturday watching college football. But, hey, at least you'll know whether you'll be happy or sad pretty early on Sunday. So, but I guess, like I said, as we'll trying to end this stuff nowadays, just get a win, man.
That's it.
Peace.